Doo-doo-dee. It's Nandi!
Hello friends. Today's video is more of an opinion piece rather than heavy analysis, but I hope it resonates with you and you still enjoy the video. I had initially titled this video 5 Things I Want for Tacticus Christmas, with the undercurrent or theme to be to talk about things that I would like fixed in the game. In time for Christmas would be great, but more realistically 2026. I drafted something about the talking points and came up with some examples, but when I was editing it all together, I felt like I lost the core message of the video, and really, that is to talk about the pain points in the economy. Snowprint watched these videos and read the comments, so please leave your feedback below. Try and be constructive and polite and upvote other comments that you agree with to bring them to the top for easy viewing. I have a 3-week-old child and I don't really want to spend time moderating the comments. Before being critical, I want to say there are a lot of things I like about Mythic. I think that the Mythic Celebration event was the most generous event in the game's history and helped players of all account sizes hugely with their account progression. Crucially, it also allowed them to exercise choice, so it was focused progression rather than random, and that was awesome. It doesn't look like it was a one-off event either. The Calgar Celebration event that is coming in early December looks to be similarly generous, if not quite at the same heights as the Mythic Celebration. I've gone into that a bit more in my patch notes video if you're curious. Every single character in a game has a Mythic mission chain, which is part puzzle, part stat check, and part grind. Complete it and your character goes from Blue Star Legendary to Mythic, a process that is essentially for free, which is huge and definitely a nice thing that Snowprint have done. All of this came alongside the introduction of Relics, which added a new tactical layer of gameplay that was fun and fresh and exciting, particularly for players at the later stages of the game. The shops have been adjusted so that players can now choose their rewards more freely. Whether that is badges or orbs, you no longer get a random faction, which is pretty good. There were some economy changes, notably an increase in energy for all players. We saw improvements to farming rates, such as doubling the quantity of raids for elite nodes, helping you farm hard to get upgrades faster, especially as you enter gold and diamond. Most characters also got noticeably cheaper to build due to an average decrease in the overall cost of commonly used items. You can see the impact of this in this graph. I know this is small, but this graph and the other two I'll show you next will be uploaded to the Tacticus wiki if you want to zoom in and analyze. The cost reduction was concentrated below silver and in the Diamond 3 upgrade requirements, while the gold ranks are more expensive. In this graph, you can see how the energy costs on average changed per rarity tier. In this final graph, you can see the cumulative effects of those energy changes per rarity. And it's true, overall things are much cheaper and it is faster to take your characters to Diamond 3. Thanks to FMG and CPU Nerd for their help with the math and the graphs. I believe they've been through the data 4 times, so I'm fairly sure this is accurate, but always subject to human error. And finally, the jump in progression is not exponential, which I'm a big fan of. It means that from a stat and ability perspective, a unit at max settings is stronger, but linearly so, and with a flatter rate of rise than the progression prior to Mythic and Adamantine. It means that players who are slower at progression don't get completely left behind. And a final point, not necessarily related to Mythic, but still relevant for the plaudits section of the video, Snowprint I think are pretty generous with their free codes. It doesn't seem like too long ago when we had about 20 codes for Carrion that a lot of players used to unlock him for free. Now, onto the pain points. A lot of us were worried about how the economy would look and feel in the new Mythic world. I have a screenshot of the relevant text from Snowprint, but allow me to paraphrase a little. Taking a character from start to Adamantine 3 was promised to take slightly longer than start to Diamond 3 in the old system. I suppose the issue is that here we are, 3 or 4 months down the line from Mythic, and progression doesn't feel like it is sped up enough. Forget about A3, we only have A1 to deal with at the moment. The rise from start to Diamond 3 I think is faster by virtue of the improved economy and campaign node farming allowances that we've already talked about, but Mythic upgrades are still really hard to find and farm. You either get them in shops, where the currency is already stretched thin, on the last node of Extremist campaign events, or at a low drop rate in quests. However, the biggest offender in limiting progression in my opinion is probably the shard system. Before Mythic came along, you could get a character to minimum legendary with 500 shards, and that would be enough. You could use that and upgrade the characters to Diamond 3, or take them to ability level 50 if you wished. There were small stat increases from the first legendary star to blue legendary star, but for the vast majority of players that didn't really matter. In order for you to even think about accessing Mythic, you first need to get to Blue Star, or max legendary rarity. That much is obvious. However, that means you'll need 1,400 shards total. Actually, it's a bit less accounting for characters' baseline rarity, but it's still a big cost. If you assume that your character starts at legendary, you still have 900 more shards to farm. On these next two slides, I've listed some counterpoints and then my own rebuttals. You could argue that players can farm campaign nodes more effectively, but the problem is one, that puts tension on your energy farming and upgrades, and two, with around 100 farmable characters, campaigns don't cover enough ground. On top of that, machines of war only have incursions as a reliable source of shards. 5 shard drops have been removed from requisitions, but that is largely a pay-to-play resource compared to other things in the game and not reliable for targeted progression. What about Onslaught? It was a great source of recurring shards when most of the characters were unlocked at Rare and Epic, and when the target was only that 500 shard legendary mark. Now, with Mythic requiring another 900 shards from Legendary 1, it works out to roughly 140 onslaughts, or 93 days of gameplay for a single character. You also have to put some thought into the characters you pick, since orb and badge rewards are also tied into choice, and those are quite scarce too. There is a part of me that also wants to reflect and anticipate what might come ahead. At the moment, at worst, we are comparing Adamantine 1 and 55 abilities to Diamond 3 and 50 abilities. The gap is there, but it's not colossal. Eventually, we will see a rise to ability level 65 and stats to Adamantine 3. For players that don't have those characters already at Mythic, or can make the Mythic transition because of the 900 shard hurdle, they will simply fall further behind. The same issue can be raised with Machines of War, with more being added to the game and farming opportunities limited. I did the math on this with the wiki guy when the Orc Rucka Truck came out. It will take 6 incursions to take a new Machine of War to Mythic and access those Mythic bonuses. That takes 7 months. I could go on, but I want to keep the message focused for the first big issue. The shard economy needs to be revisited. The other big talking point I wanted to cover is around relics. When Mythic rolled out, Snowprint said that they went through multiple drafts to make sure this feature wasn't a boring, linear extension, but something exciting and challenging and fun for veteran players. The brunt of that excitement is borne by the relics. Without them, Mythic is just Diamond 4 to 6, with a set of missions to help you get started. Some of them, particularly the unique ones, are truly powerful and have a huge positive impact on how players deal and progress with game modes. I was lucky enough to pull Revas's Burst Cannon relic, and it is crazy how strong it is for legendary release events. It can single-handedly carry you through stages, and imagine comparing that advantage to someone that doesn't have the relic. It's huge. The availability of relics has been a bone of contention and something Snowprint recognizes and is trying to address. Relic availability has gone up from 10 to 14% in the relic slot of the Rogue Trader shop, and hopefully that is the start of things to come. On this slide you can see all the relics in the game at the moment. Even with a 14% drop rate, assuming players don't spend 50 blackstone daily on the shop refresh, on average it would take almost a year to unlock all of the relics, assuming you buy a relic every time you see one. If you can't do that, and keep getting relics you do not want, the time taken is much longer. Relics are so good and so valuable that players feel like they have to save their Archaeotech for it, and it means that the other good stuff in the Rogue Trader shop is essentially too pricey. Obviously, if you have all the money in the world and buy all the relics anyway, none of this matters. But for the player saving their Archaeotech either for a valuable relic for game progression or for their favourite character, they are in a tough spot. I'm not going too hard on this one because I'm fairly confident that Snowprint will do something to address relics, but I had to talk about it since this was one of the big selling points of Mythic as a concept. Having said all this, how could Snowprint improve things? From a shard point of view, I don't know what the easy fix is. The game model works on constantly introducing more and more characters to the game, and it doesn't feel like we have organic ways of reliably farming shards for characters. The campaign events are an effort to address that, but are time limited and you can only access one campaign event at a time. Perhaps they could open up the campaign events and just remove the time restriction, making them permanent fixtures. Other potential options would be giving more shards per honor in Onslaught, or perhaps when a character is already legendary, then Onslaught could offer much more shards. What about relics? Hopefully an easy fix would be to implement the draft system like they have in other areas. Instead of drafting between Xenos, Imperial, and Chaos, we could draft between 3 relics. I'm not a tech person or a programmer, so I don't actually know how difficult that would be to implement. However, this solution would mean that if you got that lucky 14% roll, you would have a much better chance of getting what you want. Okay, that was a bit of an opinion piece, and I'm sure I'll get lots of people that don't agree with me in the comments, but I feel strongly enough that I felt I should do a video addressing the topic. The economy in a game, much like real life, is an ever-changing thing. The UK government is about to announce measures to balance the books, and I'm sure that the Tacticus equivalent of the Chancellor is also looking at when and where to make the next set of changes. There are, of course, other things I could talk about, but I wanted to be laser focused here with what I think are the biggest issues at the moment. Snowprint is a great company, full of a lot of great people who I have had the pleasure of meeting face to face and chatting to. As you all know, however, I do read your comments. I wanted to do this video to let the community know that I am aware of your concerns and my personal opinions on them. I think it is always healthy to use my platform to gather constructive feedback. I hope people will leave their thoughts in the comments, and thanks as always for your support. See you all soon.